o'clock meeting this morning. Yeah.
Chair was sticking in.
Yeah. Had a good time?
Yeah.
It can be at times. When you get a chance to that green folder, I'll just take it upstairs for you. Just put it right here. Thank you.
Take that one back to
Yeah,
Jane.
you bet.
Delivery boy.
Yep, happy to. There we go. Okay, let's call this regular council meeting of April 14th to order. First thing on the agenda is always to adopt the agenda. We do have an emergent item, 5E. I think council, you should have the report in front of you. 5E is the Rocky Foundation Board Representation Amendment. So look for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Councillor Reid?
Yeah, I would move the adoption of the agenda as amended. Just in terms of 5E, it shows that.
Oh, maybe it's 5F.
If I may, I think that was because the presenter of 5D would also be presenting this item. We wanted to keep those items together. So we are asking that it would become 5E and then there would be a 5F following that.
So 5F will be the police?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. Also move the amended agenda.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Reid. All those in favor? Carries. Minutes from our last meeting. Councillor Flowers.
I move to approve the minutes of March 24th, 2025.
Okay, no discussion. All in favor? That carries. We do not have any delegations tonight. I have a number of business items. 5A, Francophone Secondary School Site. Mr. Spence. Or no. Mr. Krasinski. Welcome.
Different mark. All right. Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. Thank you for having me here tonight to present a report requesting Council approval of recommendations to advance an opportunity for a new school in Cochrane. This presentation is a follow-up to last week's Committee of the Whole meeting, in which Stéphane Delouf co-presented with members of administration. Mr. Delouf is Franco-Sud's Executive Director of Facility Services, Planning and Transportation, and is in attendance here this evening as well. We're also joined by the principal of École Notre-Dame de Vallée and a number of their students as well. The Franco-Sud School Division contacted administration in late 2023 to assist them in identifying a site for a new school that would accommodate up to 275 students in grades 7 to 12. École de Notre-Dame de Vallée, shown on the left, is the only Franco-Sud facility in Cochrane. The school currently operates as K-12, however, is in need of more class space and better facilities, as it was initially designed and built to accommodate grades K-8. After review and consideration of a few alternatives, Franco-Sud and administration identified an undeveloped parcel adjacent to Franco-Sud as the best available option. École de Notre-Dame de Vallée is estimated to reach their student capacity within the next couple of years. As such, the need for a new facility in Cochrane was identified as the leading rural priority, along with another facility in Canmore in both the current and prior years' capital plans. Provision of a shovel-ready site in Cochrane, which this report is requesting Council support for, could provide our community with an advantage over other potential projects, such as a new facility in Canmore. The planning, design, and construction timeline for a school is a minimum of 4 years from when funding is approved. Therefore, timing on securing land is relatively critical. Once provincial funding has been secured, Franco-Sud can start the planning and design process, which takes around 18 months to complete before they can apply for a development permit, which takes 6 to 8 months to complete. While the development permit is being processed, Franco-Sud can apply for construction funding for the cost to construct the building, parking, and landscaping, which takes 18 months to 2 years. Realistically, if Franco-Sud starts the application process this summer, the secondary school could be ready for classes by fall of 2029 at the earliest. Franco-Sud administration began the search for potential sites by looking for parcels that were either at or nearing shovel-ready status. This means that the sites were graded and had servicing readily available. The only site that fit the criteria at the time was the Heartland School site, which is under Rocky View Schools' control. We approached Rocky View Schools to see if there was any interest in a land transfer, but they indicated the site was required and would be utilized by them in the near future. That would be the example on the left. Expansion of Notre-Dame-de-Vallée was considered as well. However, provincial P3 partnerships, which is public-private partnership funding model, only applies to new builds and would not cover the cost of expansions or renovations to an existing facility. The final option was to locate the proposed school on the Cochrane-owned parcel right next to Notre-Dame-de-Vallée. This option made the most sense because the site is shovel-ready. Both existing and future schools can also take advantage of sharing school facilities, which increases the utilization of land. The subject site is located at 136. Subject site is located at 136 Quigley Drive in West Terrace. It is an L-shaped parcel, 4.5 acres in size, and lies adjacent to École de Notre-Dame-de-Vallée. An important attribute of this site is that it is zoned Community Services District, which permits schools. Therefore, a land use amendment would not be required for this use. Although designated as a municipal reserve parcel, the Municipal Government Act stipulates that a municipal reserve disposal process would not be required if the land is being transferred to a school board for the purpose of building a school. It would be redesignated as municipal school or school reserve at a later time. The site is bordered to the south by Quigley Drive, which is a collector road, a soccer field to the east, which is shared with the neighboring Midford School, the railway to the north, and 5 single-family homes and a lane to the west. The parcel is large enough to fit the anticipated school footprint, which is between 4,600 square meters or approximately 50,000 square feet. The site should be large enough to accommodate the school's parking requirements, but it could also share parking and drop-off areas with the existing school if necessary. Considerations and benefits. The site provides a shovel-ready opportunity, which gives Cochrane a clear advantage over other municipalities that are also competing for school funding by demonstrating to the province that we have a site that is ready to go, thereby increasing the likelihood that provincial funding is provided. This site also provides greater harmonization and optimization of the existing École Notre-Dame-de-Vallée. This means rather than finding another school site elsewhere, Franco-Sud could expand the operations in a shared location. Both proposed and existing schools can work together and provide shared facilities. Traffic impacts would be minimized, minimal, as 93% of Franco-Sud's students are bused in. The existing drop-off areas in front of École Notre-Dame-de-Vallée can be utilized so traffic on Quigley Drive is not impacted. Administration views the proposed school as an added community amenity rather than a loss of municipal reserve. The school's facilities such as a gymnasium, playgrounds, and improved ball fields, a potential theater, career and technology studies facilities, etc., can be made available for public use through the joint use planning agreement, which the school boards that Franco-Sud is a party to are currently working on with administration. This proposal was internally vetted through various groups, as well as a few external groups as well, including the Technical Review Committee, the Development and Infrastructure Growth Committee, and the Senior Leadership Team, as well as discussions with primary internal interest holders such as planning services, parks, civil land, and roads. The administration also retained an external consultant, Urban Systems, to provide a technical review on servicing capacity, and Cochrane's 2 other school boards, being Rocky View School Division and the Calgary Catholic School Board, who have both given their support for the proposed site with no objections. Feedback from these engagements was generally in favor of the proposed school site. Most of the feedback was associated with site design, such as fire access and parking requirements, which could be addressed during the development permit stage. The main concerns were associated with some public perception, specifically what are the possible impacts on the surrounding residents, and would this be perceived as a loss of park space? To help visualize the potential impact of a new school at this location, planning services sketched out a site concept plan to show how some of the perceived impacts could be mitigated through design. For example, noise from outdoor activities could be mitigated by locating outdoor play areas away from the nearby residential areas to the west. As for potential visual impacts, measures such as landscape buffering, increased building setbacks, and stepping back building heights can also be utilized. Administration evaluated the proposal through a value proposition chart, which weighs the positive and negative changes for various civic attributes. Overall, administration views the proposal as positive value proposition, especially for its educational, recreational, and social benefits, and has no perceived negative impacts to the community as a whole. At last week's Committee of the Whole, we received a few questions from council that we wanted to address in this presentation. The first question was, why can't Franco-Sud secure their own funding for an expansion in their capital plan in the same way that Rocky View School Board did for the Bow Valley High School? Planning Services followed up with Rocky View School Board on the funding mechanism for the Bow Valley High School, and the determination was this was funded during a traditional funding model, which has since been superseded by the public partnership funding model. Effectively, Bow Valley High School was grandfathered under a previous funding model that isn't currently in place. The second question we received is there an opportunity to share space with St. Timothy's High School? Administration followed up with Franco-Sud and was informed that this option had been explored with the Calgary Catholic School Board multiple times over the years in the past without any success. Some of the main concerns related to the fundamental differences in how the school boards are governed, their different funding models, educational mandates, and different agreements for maintenance and repair and sustainment of the schools. The final question was around how Franco-Sud will approach communication strategy with the residents, which is the purpose of this slide here. Following the Committee of the Whole, administration connected with Franco-Sud, and they provided the following additional detail regarding their proposed engagement plan. Once funding for the planning and design is awarded by the province, Franco-Sud plans to host 2 public engagement sessions. Before any planning design work commenced, Franco-Sud would hold a public engagement session where they will listen to questions or concerns, discuss their school needs, and demonstrate how a new school can benefit the community. This would be engagement session 1 and bullet 2. Franco-Sud would take the feedback of the first engagement and create a preliminary site plan. Then in a second public engagement, they would present that plan to the public and receive their further input. Following final modifications, the school plan would be submitted for the development permit process. After receiving development permit approval, if they do, Franco-Sud would hold an open house showing the final school plan as well, which is identified in bullet 5 here for late 2027. Next steps. If Council endorses the recommendations of this report, administration will provide Franco-Sud with a letter of support. Franco-Sud will use this letter to demonstrate to the province that they, in principle, have secured a shovel-ready site in Cochrane. When funding is granted by the province, Franco-Sud will start their public engagement process. As Franco-Sud prepares their site planning, administration will work to add Franco-Sud's interest on title as co-owner of the site in whichever way is in alignment with the joint use planning agreement currently underway in development with the school boards and administration. Administration requests that Council formally endorse providing a letter of support by administration for transfer of an interest in the parcel located at 136 Quigley Drive to Franco-Sud, and transfer of this interest to Franco-Sud once the provincial funding is approved for planning, development, and construction of a secondary school on the subject property. This option means that Council supports administration providing a letter of support to Franco-Sud to aid in their efforts in securing provincial funding, and if successful, add Franco-Sud as co-owner to the town on the land title at 136 Quigley Drive. Option 2 is that council refuses the proposed land, transfer land to Franco-Sud, providing it would allow support. This option would imply that council disagrees with the proposed land transfer, resulting in Franco-Sud needing to find an alternative site for the secondary school. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Krasinski. Very detailed report. Turn it over to council. Councillor Reid.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that presentation. I'm wondering if there is actually a fourth option, and that is it possible to have all the public consultation, the traffic studies, and all the other requirements before council goes ahead and decides to approve this proposed land transfer?
Through the chair, Councillor Reid, I think at this point what we're trying to demonstrate for the province to give the highest likelihood of success is to demonstrate that we are serious about the transfer of this parcel. However, that is still contingent on approval of the funding from the province. So it is our belief that this is the best path forward in order to secure a future school site.
So to be clear, then what you're saying is the province wouldn't approve this in terms of funding unless we provided the proposed land transfer?
Through the chair, Councillor Reid, one of the requirements of requesting funding from the province is that there is a shovel-ready site secured, which gives the greater chance of success.
So we know that the site is shovel-ready. So
Correct.
I'm not sure that I understand that. If the site is shovel-ready, does it still need to proceed with a land transfer to be able to be eligible?
Through the chair, Councillor Reid, at this point, we're just looking to provide a letter of support from administration that says that we are in support of the site being used for the school. And then in the event that that the school or Franco-Sud School Board is successful with obtaining the approval from the province, then we would look to proceed with the land transfer at a later date at that time. But it is subject to approval of funding from the province.
So, sorry. So the answer is yes, we could wait until a later date to do the proposed land transfer.
That component of the recommendation we could wait for later. We just included it in here for efficiency purposes for council.
Yeah, because I think that might be an option in terms of being able to consider that we would look at a land transfer after the public consultation has occurred and all the studies are done. But we could obviously provide a letter of support with that condition. Is that not an option?
Through the chair, Councillor Reid, it would be an option to consider. I feel like it would lend less certainty to the province in the conversations that Franco-Sud has with the province.
But again, to your own words, if the site is site ready, then that is the criteria that the province wants to be able to see, is it not?
Through the chair, Councillor Reid, they want to see that it is shovel ready, and they also want to know that essentially the site is secured. So we wouldn't want to transfer it not knowing there was funding and then find out funding isn't approved and then potentially hold up the use of the site for another alternative. However, that is one component, is they want to see that there is a high likelihood at least and certainty that council would transfer the site, which my concern would be that may not, that may be a lesser level than they're willing to accept.
Okay.
Mr. Derricott has an additional.
If I may, I think Mr. Krasinski was just touching on what I was going to add to this is it is incredibly unlikely that the province will fund a project without a commitment of land. And so until there's a commitment of land, the funding for the school would be very, very improbable. And a conditional commitment is not a commitment in, I think, the province's eyes around school sites. So
I guess I appreciate that. I guess I would need to be convinced that we couldn't have a conditional offer having done all the public engagement and all that first.
And I think we can. I think the question is that just delays the process, as in the project would not likely be submitted to provincial funding until those processes were undertaken. So those can take place first. It would just delay the process, as well as it would be up to the school board as to whether or not they were willing to undertake those costs without the certainty of the site and those other outcomes. So I don't know if Mr. Krasinski could speak to that. But I think the premise most important here is that the time delays. We're looking at already a 4 to 5 year process if everything went immediately smoothly, and any additional front ending of that just pushes that outcome further down the road.
I have an additional question if I could. So if we were to go ahead with the proposed land transfer, and during that, I don't know if you could flip back 2 slides to the public consultation. If in that engagement process, council then it becomes clear that this is not necessarily something we want to proceed with in terms of that land transfer, what happens to that proposed land transfer then?
Through the chair, Councillor Reid, I believe how we have it worded right now is that it's subject to funding for both plan, design, and construction of the subject site. So my understanding is that Francophone School Board is relying on provincial funding for planning and design. So if I go back a couple more slides here, they would essentially request provincial funding for planning and design of the site. And then once that planning and design was complete and could be submitted with the development permit, there would be the additional request then for funding for construction and building of the subject site. So this really helps them get through the costs associated with the planning and design in order to be in that position. But the land transfer, I believe we could hold to a later date till we get to the construction and to have both of those satisfied. But I do agree with Mr. Derricott as well, though, that it decreases the likelihood of that. Once the site is planned and designed and the site is selected, I think it's very unlikely it wouldn't be funded for construction as well. It's just a matter of trying to predict a magic 8 ball of what the funding looks like for the provincial government at that time and competing priorities.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. I actually hear from my colleagues.
If I could just share as well, I think it's important to look at this from the context of other school sites within the town that have been developed as well. So they all go through this process. So when a developer has not completed their process, the school board, whether it's Rocky View School Board, cannot apply and go through this planning and design process. So again, we have a shovel-ready site. The only thing we're asking for is the opportunity to proceed to the planning and design. There's always the intention to have engagement. I know there's a number of interested parties here, but we feel that that can occur following the planning and design stages as well as the funding. So there is more information. I think Mr. Derricott's correct. Does the Franco-Sud Board want to go to the expense of preparing all of that in advance of securing funding? So I think that's a critical consideration.
I just want to build on one thing that you asked, Councillor Reid, that Mr. Krasinski kind of left vague, I think. Is the letter of support tonight contingent on, so the way I understand what you just explained was land transfer doesn't happen. This is a letter of support we're talking about tonight. In the effect that the province grants funding for design and planning, that is when the land transfer would potentially take place. But then is there a condition in there that when the public process happens and the development permit application process happens, where say there's a traffic impact assessment done and it's deemed not suitable, what happens then? I think, is that, yeah.
To the mayor. What we have proposed in here, and we mentioned a transfer of interest in the parcel, and that really is meant to indicate that not removing the town from ownership on the parcel, ensuring that the town remains in control of the parcel, at least as a co-owner. So ensuring that in the event that there is, say, a delay in the development permit application or a need to adjust, the municipality doesn't lose any interest in the parcel along the way. And that's why it's intentionally referenced as an interest in the parcel, which is not direct to your question, but essentially saying that's the mechanism that we're trying to leverage to ensure that the municipality retains some ownership and control and interest in the parcel in the event of an unforeseen circumstance that gets in the way of approval of a development permit and advancing the plan for a school on the site.
If I may add to that, Mayor Genung, one of the elements of the planning and design process in the school projects is to ensure they mitigate any issues with servicing or traffic, and they have to demonstrate to the province that they have a viable project prior to them funding construction as well. So the province won't fund construction if those types of questions were left unanswered, for example, traffic impact or serviceability.
So to sum that up, if the municipality still would have control at the end of the day if the development permit process isn't met to take back the site.
To the mayor, that is correct. That's the intent of what we're looking to achieve.
Okay. With that?
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Flowers.
I too would have liked to seen some community engagement before we move forward. This was a surprise to the neighbors around, and we got a ton of letters over the last few days, both positive and negative about the project. So it was hard to weigh it through all of it, but is it possible to at least have one engagement so that we can maybe answer some of these questions and give people feedback before we make the decision?
Through the chair to Councillor Fowers, I think including additional steps in the process is always a possibility. Through administration's lens and seeing the current state of and the interest in providing additional facilities for schools in Cochrane, we prioritized a path forward that would give Cochrane the greatest opportunity to access provincial funding to bring a school forward at the fastest possible schedule that we could, while ensuring we worked with the partners to incorporate some public engagement that they've graciously offered to do over and above what is currently required in our existing planning processes for development permits, in order to demonstrate the commitment to the community and creating a product that will integrate well into the surrounding developments.
Some of the people were concerned that the pot of money is only so big, and that if this school's approved, it might take away from another school. Do you know, is there different pots of money, or is it all coming out of one pot?
To the chair, Councillor Flowers, I wouldn't want to comment too directly on a provincial funding mechanism that I'm not overly familiar with. However, I do believe that providing additional funding for the Francophone school that's being provided will create additional capacity in other schools as well, by enabling some of the current students at École de Valley that may have to look to another school because they hit a grade where they no longer have capacity in the school to accommodate them. And that is something they do see their enrollment drop off after that grade 8, just because of the lack of facilities available for those 8 to 12 age.
There was some compelling letters for that argument. You talked about what we're going to gain if we go ahead with the project. Can you remind me what we're losing in the fields and what they've been used for?
Yeah, so right now the fields are currently unprogrammed. They are open space effectively, but they're used occasionally by minor soccer in the community as well, which we believe that the fields are being relocated, and there would be additional amenities provided in terms of formal goal posts, so those would still be available. Effectively, it's largely unprogrammed space at this time, with some limited use by minor soccer, which would still be in available use in the remaining fields.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to what others have to say.
Councillor Federico.
Thank you for the presentation. I'd like to put option 3 on the floor, that council looks at endorsing this proposal down the road after public engagement is completed and answers to questions involving safety, emergency services, parking, as well as a traffic study to be completed. You had mentioned that, yes, this does push off the proposal for Francophone. I want to make it very clear, I'm not against Francophone having a school there. What I'm against is how the processes happen within the background. Administration has been in discussion with this project for 2+ years, as well as I understand Rockview Schools has been a part of it. Calgary Catholic has been a part of it. The people who haven't been a part of it, number 1 are council, and number 2 are the community. And I have a really big problem with both of those not being asked ahead of a proposal coming forward that's kind of been rah-rahed, cheered on, without actually having the biggest discussion with the stakeholders who it affects. And that is the people that live within that area. I met with probably over 25 not impressed residents over the weekend who had concerns. And again, they're not against a school, they're against the process of how this has come forward. You talk about building a 50,000 square foot building with a 50-foot setback. That's like 8 men lined up head to toe from somebody's backyard that then would have a 50,000 square foot building put in front of them. My biggest other thing that I wanted to bring up is Councillor Nagel had mentioned that, you know, it's a school site, yes, and we are all desperate. We all know here in Cochrane, we are desperate for schools. The Francophone School will service a small minority of what we really need within our area, right? And that's not to discredit the fact that they need a school as well. It's just that I wonder, is this the right site? Is it the right area? And is it the right time, most of all? Trying to think of what else I want to add here. I'm not in favor of endorsing this as of tonight. Let's go back to public engagement, proper engagement. Everybody else has had 2 years to chomp on this, but we've had a week as council to not only hit our inbox, but also for the residents to hear that. That's not okay with me. I won't be endorsing it tonight. Please bring back an option 3. And I'd like to say to Francophone, it's not like that land's going to be developed into another school parcel. It's not like somebody else has a public interest on it. Whether or not it sits there for another 6 months, well, we can be able to address concerns in the community, address concerns of emergency services, parking, traffic. Once that's done, feel free to come back, and if that's all met, happy to endorse the project. I'm just not happy to endorse it in the way that it is and being brought forward in the way that it is tonight.
Councillor Federico, before you turn your light off, did you make a motion there?
I would like to move an option 3 that council delays the endorsement of the transfer of town land to Francophone until a public engagement session is done, as well as answers to questions involving emergency services, traffic, and parking are addressed. No definitive timeline. Obviously, that's going to depend on administration.
It's only 2 options. Yeah. Okay. No, thank you. I wanted to make sure you were making a formal motion. Thank you. Councillor Nagel?
I think the members of council who have spoken already have brought up a lot of really good concerns that I think also reflect a lot of really valid concerns from our residents. Something I wish that would have been included in this presentation for the public's sake is the numbers of what the school situation looks like in Cochrane. A couple months ago, we had a report that basically laid out how dire the situation is. Our schools are bursting at the seams. Cochrane continues to grow very quickly, and the province has not even come close to committing funds to match that growth. It's happening in schools. We're seeing it in healthcare, where you have emergency rooms just bursting at the seams. Our traffic is getting busy everywhere. It used to always feel to me like this was just a Cochrane problem. I've come to realize over the last few years, this is a Canadian problem. Our country's growing too fast. Our province is growing too fast. And the crazy thing is that while we're growing too quickly, funding for capital projects is actually moving in the opposite direction. And so we have our province actively campaigning for the Move to Alberta campaign, while also not giving municipalities money to build schools or any services for the residents that they're inviting here. So we are between a rock and a hard place where any opportunity that we get for funding for a school project, we need to find a way to make it happen as soon as possible, because the province is like, and look, I'm a big supporter of our provincial government. I really am. I love our premier, but the things that we're dealing with are very challenging, because if we just don't take this opportunity, they'll probably just go somewhere else and give the money to somebody else, because every single town in this entire country and province needs this funding. And I do recognize the concerns that people have. I live up in Fireside. I live right beside a school. It's great for property values, but it is kind of annoying. My dogs go ballistic every single day while the buses show up in the morning and in the afternoon. So I don't know. I have a hard time with this one, because I really understand why residents would be concerned, but I don't see myself being able to, in good conscience, say no to any opportunity to build schools. And I say the same thing about healthcare. I say the same thing about traffic infrastructure. So if we can find a way to make option 3 work, where we slow things down to do this more properly, I'm in favor of that, but I don't want to do anything to jeopardize this funding, because there's just not enough funding for projects like this. So we need to try and get it. That's as honest of an answer, or honest of a statement of my position as I can possibly give.
And through the chair, Councillor Nagel, if I could comment on that quickly, I think that that is one of the trade-offs in the situation, is taking some additional time to do some work that you would typically see at a development permit phase will definitely have some impact on the ability of and the timing of funding and the delivery of a school site.
If I could just share, Councillor Nagel, thank you for your comments. I think you referred to the presentation that we made on January 6th for council, and one of the messages was the message you just shared, is let's look at solutions and find them and bring them forward to council. So we feel that we're doing that with this proposal.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McFadden, you're up next.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this one is a tough one. It's been echoed. We all know we need school sites. We need places for our kids to go to school. And it's tough to get the funding to do that. So my first instinct is anytime we have an opportunity to advance a solution to our school system, I want to support that. But the second piece is this feels rushed to me. It doesn't feel like the community's had an honest opportunity to get up to speed, to be heard, and to share their concerns. And just even reflecting on the presentation tonight, I mean, it identifies that under the MGA, we are exempt from holding a public hearing, which we would hold in every other example of a development like this. So for my part, I really would support, and I have a question for Councillor Federico. If by public engagement, do you mean holding a public hearing? Or is it just the school's public engagement?
I would like to see a public hearing come forward. I think this is a big enough impact. We're not just talking about, and I hate to say it, but like 5 residents or residences that border onto this property. It doesn't just affect 5 people. It affects an entire community. And to Councillor Nagel's point about Fireside, I have a child that attends one of 2 Fireside schools, and I have to tell you, it makes me extraordinarily nervous that we are going to continue to repeat mistakes when it comes to parking, when it comes to drop-off, when it comes to traffic that I see there on a daily basis. Someday, some child will probably be, I'm not just talking injured, probably be critically injured. And it's due to the fact of how drop-off happens. It's due to the fact that you have too many cars within a congested area. I don't want to see us repeat the same mistakes. We have an opportunity right here, right now. And yes, I get it that it delays things. I'm not saying that I'm not endorsing it. I want to be able to endorse it, but I want to be able to endorse it with the proper information so that I can go out and collectively tell the residents of Cochrane and of West Valley, West Terrace, West Point, that this is the best solution and this is why we're going forward. But without that information, I don't feel comfortable stating that, because the fact is that I don't even have the information to be able to give them. And so, like I said, I would prefer a public hearing, absolutely. Let's hear from the residents, and then let's give the chance for the Francophone board to also come forward and talk about their need, what is required, why they're pushing this forward, because I think it's both to hear both sides of the equation on equal levels. But right now, we're hearing one without the other.
Still
me?
Still you.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that is my concerns. We haven't had a chance to hear from the residents, for them to get up to share their perspectives. Just looking at the site layout, and I don't know anything about planning schools, but this looks tight to me. I do have a concern about how close the setback is between the residences and the school site. And I mean, I can certainly see the benefits of leveraging the amenities between the 2 schools as well. So I can see some upsides to it. But big picture, I know we need schools, but this is feeling rushed. It feels rushed to myself. It feels rushed to our residents, and I think we need to build in an opportunity for the community to be heard. And so, Councillor Federico, if you wouldn't mind a friendly amendment that this just be deferred, this decision to be deferred pending an official public hearing instead of public engagement, if that's all right.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks. I had many dozens of emails and phone calls, as I assume everyone around the bench did, and it was a pretty clear divide that it was about 50-50 pro and against. The against were almost exclusively West Valley residents, and the for it were almost exclusively non-West Valley residents, it seemed like to me. And so that tells me it feels like a rush process. I think there should be an opportunity for the local residents to have a say and at least assuage some of the problems that they have or fear would come with this development, and hopefully we'd be able to find some kind of balance, because I'd like to see it go forward. But at this point, it feels too rushed. I agree with Councillor Federico that some sort of public consultation is in order, and I would be putting my vote that way towards option 3. I guess I do have one question about how that public engagement could possibly happen. I don't know if the administration could speak to the public hearing versus the open house or whatever other options there might be, or if well, option 3 wasn't even on the slide. So what could option 3 meaningfully look like? Do we have any idea?
Through the chair, and I'll look to some of my colleagues here for support as well too. But you know, I would lean more in favor probably to a public hearing component of it, solely because I feel like we may be putting an additional burden onto the applicant of a school board that wouldn't typically fall on any other developer if they were coming forward with a development permit application on a parcel that was in alignment with that land use. In some ways, some of the studies may come off as asking a school board to do more and go over and above what you would see with a private development. So a public hearing would maybe just be an opportunity for people to provide their insight and their feedback. A open house probably takes a little bit longer and a little bit more additional resources. We'd have to work with Francophone, the applicant, to see how they would want to organize and coordinate an open house for that purpose. Yeah, that would be, and if any of my colleagues have anything to add as well, I would welcome that.
Yeah. Thank you. I through the chair, agree with Mr. Krasinski's assessment that a public hearing feels like the most appropriate form of public engagement should council direct that. I would also suggest that it is at the discretion of the school board as to if they want to engage in some education and some other activities leading up to a public hearing as part of that to support the best possible public dialogue.
Thank you. That all seems totally reasonable. I agree. What timelines, if we were to proceed down that route, public hearing, is that a 2-week holdup, a 1-month holdup?
Through the chair, Councillor Wilson, we would have to prepare an additional report to request and schedule the public hearing. So I believe we'd probably be looking at 2 to 4 weeks to bring back that report to request a public hearing, and then at least a week or two after that for the public hearing. So we're probably looking at about 6 weeks.
Okay, that seems reasonable to me still. I came into the meeting without a formed opinion, waiting to hear what the table had to say and glean wisdom from group opinion here. And I think I like the way option 3 is trending based on whatever else I hear. But option 3 of the public hearing makes sense to me, and I lean that way right now.
Just before we go around the table one more time, maybe I'll weigh in. I did thank you, Councillor Wilson. I had that same question about public hearing and process. The one you didn't ask though was what specific question would what are we asking? Is this an appropriate site for a school? Is this, I think we need to be clear in what people are coming to speak for or against, and that's really I think what we'd get lost in this. And I'm not siding on either side of this. I think it needs to be clear to all involved, school division or otherwise, residents, but what question are we asking? And I think I understand the position administration has taken in putting this on the floor tonight. I think what I'm hearing from most of my colleagues, if not all, and the community members I've heard from today too, is that this has been a bit of a rushed process and people would like more of an opportunity to weigh in. But so what are we weighing in on? And then that falls back to the chicken and egg about, well, how big is the school? Where is it going? What's the parking requirements? What's the servicing? What's the traffic impacts, first response, all of that. But now you're saying that's what happens at development permit process. So that's why I was asking the question earlier about can we find a happy medium in the middle of this where we get to do the public hearing and actually speak to what it is that we're talking about. And I don't know if there's an answer to that. And then the question I have is how much does it cost typically to do a traffic impact assessment, servicing, investigation, the things that Councillor Vadeco has in her motion? Who would pay for that? And I'm assuming it would be Franco-Sud School Division, but who's going to pay for something they don't have certainty in getting a land transfer? So we're just stuck in the middle again. So maybe I'll stop by asking the question, roughly how much are we talking about? 50,000, 500,000? I just want to know the magnitude. Or does it depend on so many things?
Well, and to the mayor, it is dependent on a number of things. I think typically, as part of a development permit application process, it would be circulated internally to internal interest holders who would identify concerns that they have and typically request studies based on the concerns that are identified. One of them would be a traffic impact assessment, and there could be others as well. So, I mean, you're probably still in the order of magnitude looking at a minimum of 50,000 and possibly over 100,000 for the number of studies that could be required. Not to mention the costs that would go into designing a facility of this size as well. Short of that, I think we're looking probably at having a public hearing to request whether we believe that this is a good location for a school, without having a lot of the other details, if we want to keep it to 6 weeks. Otherwise, we can start getting into 6 months to a year. And that would all be dependent on the amount of money that Francophone was interested in investing in a potential site that they may not be able to access either. And from our internal circulations, that was the intent behind doing internal engagements with roads and fire, and soliciting some feedback at a high level from our external consultant, that they did not identify concerns that they thought would be insurmountable with the site, acknowledging, of course, there was no specific feedback from the community directly.
Okay. Thank you. I think that was it for my questions at this point, but we'll go back around and see another couple of lights on. Councillor Nagel, back to you.
I just wanted to request that as part of the conversation we have in a public hearing, if we can bring back the numbers that council saw in January, just that the whole community sees that. I'm not being dramatic. That we have way too many students, not enough students, way too many students, not enough schools, and it's just getting worse very quickly.
Councillor Federico.
Thank you, and thank you to the mayor for bringing up some of those things, because you did kind of put a dollar amount, and I certainly don't want to see somebody spending thousands of dollars, but I think the biggest question is this site suitable for a school to begin with? Let's start the conversation there. It's kind of where I understand the idea of the public hearing versus public engagement and having an open house where really it's just dialogue one way. It'd be Francophone telling the residents what their plans are, what they're planning to bring forward, which I think eliminates the fact of what I'm trying to get at, is that we haven't had a chance to hear from the residents to begin with. I don't know what that question is that I'd be specifically asking to be answered, but maybe just, is this the appropriate place for a school to be built? And with that then comes all the other, questions that I have around emergency services, around parking, around traffic and everything else. But I think that you have to have an opportunity to allow them to speak and not just be told what is going to go forward. And yes, there's that possibility that a development permit stage that, we just realize that this isn't gonna go forward, but let's face it, once things start going forward and they have a certainty that they have funding and things, it's going to move forward one way or another, but we haven't had the chance to actually hear from the people that it impacts to begin with. And that's really what I'm trying to get at. Like I said, it's not that I don't want to support it, I just want to give them an opportunity to be able to speak to it. And this isn't, like I said, you've had 2 years to bring it forward. I'm struggling with the fact of why we didn't have any sort of engagement with residents prior to this point.
Before you turn your light off, thank you. So what I'm attempting to do is, I understand where you're going with the public hearing and asking that question. It's then we start to get into the technical side. I would like to see those two things separated. And I think the development permit process handles that. If it's a no-go with the public hearing, then why do that at all? So, and if it's a go, then the development permit still takes care of that stuff, and it still would have to cross that threshold. So I'm trying to separate the two.
Yeah, fair enough. And I don't mind the idea of doing a public hearing, just asking the question, is this an appropriate place for a school to be? And just leave it at that. And then if the majority of people feel that that's the right place, makes sense, everybody seems to be in support, then let's move it on to the next step, but I don't feel comfortable endorsing it to move to that next step without even asking that question to begin with. Thank you for that.
Councillor Reid.
Yeah, I love how this discussion's going, and I initiated it by suggesting an option 4 because in the agenda package, there actually is 3 options as opposed to the 2 that are presented on the screen. You know, I began by saying I was looking for an alternative in terms of being able to move forward with this, and I appreciate where Councillor Federico has taken us in terms of that public consultation. I too remain concerned about the traffic study and other requirements such as services, although I understand the services are less of an issue. But I think the question that you posed, Jeff, in terms of is this your appropriate site for a school, I think that would be sufficient enough. The other thing is I think it allowed the school itself, the school officials to be able to actually explain what it is they're trying to achieve here beyond just addressing the fact that it's a school. And so I look forward to that meeting.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other lights. We have a motion on the floor that's been amended, and then we've talked about some changes to it. I just want to be clear on what we're asking, what the motion is. Maybe outline that one more time, please, Councillor Federico.
So perhaps looking at an option 3 that council holds off on endorsing the Francophone secondary school site until we hold a public hearing that addresses the question, is this an appropriate site for a school to be built at? And I believe that it would be 6 weeks, because I assume that there's going to be a report that comes forward. Then also there has to be public advertising with a public hearing. So I would imagine that that's going to have to occur. And then let's hear from the residents, and then we go from there to the next steps of whether or not council, after the public hearing, chooses to move forward with the endorsement.
Okay, thank you. So that's a bit of a shift from what the initial motion was. I just want to give everybody an opportunity to speak to it if you want, if you think it's clear. We're good? Okay. Sorry, Mr. Heineman, did you have a point?
I just wanted to bring to council's attention, I appreciate the desire to have the public hearing, and if we go in 6 weeks, again, there needs to likely be some engagement between Franco Sud and the impacted neighbors. It can't just be through a public hearing process, I think, because my read of the submissions that came forward, we're looking for information. If we don't address that and provide some additional information, or at least provide the opportunity, I feel that we're likely to have people come in and have the same concerns they have tonight. So I'm just thinking that it's important that we look at that and understand that, yes, the public hearing is an important step in the process, but there has to be some additional steps, I think, as well. That's all I wanted to share.
To the mayor, if I could add something as well too, that may be an additional option too for council to consider is if the letter of support were amended to be transferred, or if it was subject to approval of a development permit, to enable at least a letter of support to proceed to request funding support, and amending that to be subject to approval of a development permit, which would enable a number of these engagements to complete ahead of that time as well.
Okay, Councillor Nagel, that's initiated another comment?
Yeah, if I'm understanding what you've suggested correctly, I think that's the perfect solution. I think that's what Councillor Reid was hoping to find, is we can do the letter of support to get the request for funding moving forward, but still say, hey, this development permit is going to be subject to extensive consultation and community engagement. So we can make the decision tonight to allow them to go and seek the funding, correct? But then also not say we're not walking away from the duty and obligation to consult with the community and make sure that things are done properly, correct?
Through the chair, Councilor Nagel, that's correct. Just making the transfer subject to be support, we endorse it generally, but subject to development permit approval.
Yeah, so if council's interested, I think that's much better than delaying now for a public hearing, because that will still require a public hearing, correct, at that point?
Through the chair, a development permit would not typically require a public hearing.
Oh, okay.
No, it would not.
Oh, okay.
If I can, for council's benefit, and again, I think I've heard very clear from several members of council tonight that you want your opportunity to hear from residents. Again, the development permit process, if you recall our hierarchy that we've shared a number of times, that is where council is, it's only administration at that point. So again, going back, if you're looking for your opportunity, it would be based on the suggestion of the public hearing at this stage.
Okay, I misunderstood. Sorry. Then I defer back to supporting, I guess, what Councilor Federico has already put forward.
Option 3.3. Okay, everyone knows what we're doing? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? None opposed, that carries unanimously. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krasinski. Moving on to 5B in our agenda is, where is mine? Bylaw 10, 2025. Maybe we'll give the gallery 10 seconds to carry on. James Walker Trail, Stage 3 borrowing. Mr. Alim, good evening.
Good evening. Oh, excuse me. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am presenting the James Walker Trail Stage 3 Borrowing Bylaw 10-2025. The recommended action is that Council gives second and third reading to Bylaw 10-2025. This bylaw was presented to Council on March 10th, 2025, where it received first reading. In accordance with the Municipal Government Act, this bylaw was advertised in the Cochrane Eagle for 2 consecutive weeks and did not receive any petition against the bylaw. The James Walker Trail Project Stage 3 was approved in the 2025 budget at a cost of $17,890,000. The interest as quoted by the Government of Alberta is 4.81%, funding through a debenture, and repayment of the debenture will be through offset levies for a period of 20 years. So the recommended action is that Council gives second and third reading to Bylaw 10-2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alim. Go to Councillor Reid.
Make the motion that council gives second reading to Bylaw 10, 2025, and just say I think this is an exciting opportunity in terms of what we want to do on this south side of the river, and it's been a long time coming, but we're there, and so thank you to administration and the team for getting us to this point.
Councillor Federico.
Thank you. I have one question for you. So James Walker Trail, written in the budget, is stated that it's being paid back through offsite levies, correct?
Chair through Councillor Federico, correct?
And so the River Heights Pump Station, it's listed, that payment of, I think, 3-some-odd million was listed as debt, but then it's supposed to be paid back through offsite levies. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Federico, I believe so,
Yes, Councillor Federico, it is through offsite levies, as well as we have the Qualico is paying their portion, but then repaid ultimately through offsite levies.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to understand why one says it's being paid through by debt versus this one's being said through offsite levies, yet it's being paid back through offsite levies. See what I'm saying about the confusion?
No, I understand, and certainly my colleague has her light on, and I will allow her to provide an opportunity to clarify this, and I think it's a straightforward answer.
Through the chair to Councillor Federico, I think that's one of the budget improvements that we talked about through this last budget process, was ensuring that it was clear in the document on when we're saying debt and ensuring that it's identifying that it's through offsite levy funded debt. And so that is an improvement that we are working on, and you will definitely see a difference in the next budget coming forward. But for this current borrowing bylaw for James Walker Trail, it is being funded as indicated by Mr. Lee.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. To be fair, I won't be voting in favor of it because I've spoken many times about this, that I'm not in favor of voting for something that's covered through offsite levies without actually having the offsite levy report in front of me and understanding what is happening with that. So I won't be supporting any of them, and not because I don't feel that they're a valuable project, 100% do, but I need to understand where that funding is and what it's looking like before I can greenlight it.
Councillor Flowers.
So we've talked about this lots before, and I'm all in favor of it, but for those that are listening that maybe don't understand or didn't listen before, we're doing this to make it happen sooner, and the whole bit of the money's gonna get paid back, all the interest and everything as the development proceeds.
The Chair, to Councillor Fowler, that is correct.
So it's not costing the residents anything, we're just doing it to get it done a lot quicker?
That is correct.
And will it be done this year?
I'll put that question to Mr. Chadman.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Flowers. Simple answer is we are intending to start the project on May 1st. However, there is some complexity to this that I wanted to share with Council, so I was prepared to give a more detailed answer in this. I want Council to understand this is simply not just a road. We are lowering the main sanitary force main for Cochrane as well. So that's the transmission of all of our sanitary to Calgary. So it is being lowered for the future intersection. That's critical infrastructure for our community. So there's significant work happening there. The moving of the power line by South Bow as well is included within that. As well as, and this is probably the most important part, the eastern portion that is our responsibility has significant cut and fill. So the compaction that needs to occur, that's why in the budget we said we would be completed over 2 construction seasons. Obviously, I've committed to council, I've talked to people in the community about trying to get this done in the shortest time frame possible. However, it is subject to getting this project started and then the proper compaction to allow the opening of that. But however, we believe that there will be significant portions of this road completed this construction season and that will be operational in 2026. If everything goes right, obviously we'd like to get it in 2025. I hope that provides some clarity in terms of that. I am asked this question on a regular basis whenever residents on River Heights Drive are asking, but it is a very complex project. As I've had many people say, well, they're just building a road, why can't they get it done?
It's complicated. So have we already done the request for proposal? For who's doing it?
Yes, we have a contractor who's ready to start May 1st.
Oh, good. I can tell people that then. Thank you.
I appreciate the answer and the question this evening. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. A question about the variables involved. I am for this motion. Whenever we're talking about front-ending a project like this, if I understand it correctly, when it's an off-site levy funded project, the variables involved would be how fast the community gets built out that's funding it in the off-site levy. So if it builds faster, it gets paid back faster, builds slower, it's stretched out over a longer period of time. Is that basically the only variable outside of the interest rate that we'd be talking about with this?
Chair, to Councillor, that is correct. Your understanding is correct.
Okay, thank you. And then my second thought would be, what would be the consequences of voting no to this tonight? Obviously, it would be delays, and it would mean that instead of front-ending it, the road would get built in tiny portions as each development neighborhood comes on board. Would that be the...
There are pretty significant consequences, Councillor Wilson. We would not be able to proceed with the boring bylaw would not pass, and we would not have the money to pay the contractor who is intending to start within a matter of weeks, and we would not get our portion of the project completed. Qualico is intending to get their portion completed this construction season, so we would essentially not have James Walker Trail, which I think is the worst outcome that we could have.
Understood. And eventually we would have James Walker Trail. It's just it would be completed in small fragments and take extra X number of
we
years
would
to
have
actually...
their portion completed, but our portion would not be completed because we wouldn't have the funding for it, and we would have to revisit the budget and come back. So I think we would at least lose a construction season, and that's something I don't think that anybody in this room wants.
Yep, excellent. Thank you. I'm in support of the motion. I just wanted clarity with those two. Appreciate it.
Councillor Fedayko.
Yeah, just to be clear, it's not that I'm hoping that it's built in small chunks or anything. It's just the fact that I'd like to have the off-site levy bylaw in front of me, which was actually supposed to be provided. We were supposed to have annual reports that we haven't seen. So I would like to see that just to give myself a level of comfort of just the changes within that bylaw itself and how we're being repaid back and what it looks like for interest, all that stuff before I make a decision. So I realize that it would delay the project. It's not that I'm saying I don't want the project to proceed. It's just from a financial aspect, this is one of many. It's not just, one project I'm looking at, it's how many we are front-ending at this point, including, if you look down the list, there's about 6 of them. That puts us into that position where we're not only over our town imposed debt limit, but over the provinces, right? So it's the much larger forecast that I'm looking at, not at one project.
Councillor Wilson?
And just to clarify quickly, my questions weren't to rip on a no vote from Councillor Fedeko. That was more of just, you hear a lot of public perceptions about offsite levies and borrowing, and I just think that being absolutely clear about the consequences of yes versus no is important in these settings, and that's more what I was trying to get at. I'm also very interested in the offsite levy information too, and waiting with bated breath, so I agree.
Yeah, I too will be supporting second and third reading tonight. I think we have second reading on the floor already. I'm not in favor of delaying the project for all the reasons that have been outlined today, and including the fact that it would probably cost us more in another year. And I'm confident in the offsite levy bylaw that we have in place now covers interest, carrying costs, and all of that. I understand, Councillor Fedeko, you want to see the whole updated offsite levy bylaw. I too, but I do want to see us move forward with this project this year and not have that traffic on River Heights Drive any longer than we need to. So with that, I don't see any other comments. I'll call the question. All those in favor of second reading? Those opposed? Councillor Reid, third reading?
I will move third reading of Bylaw 10, 2025.
All those in favor? Those opposed? And that also carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aleem. You're going to stay with us for 5C, 2024 year-end surplus transfers.
So good evening, Mayor and Council. I am presenting the year-end surplus transfer for 2024. The recommended action is that Council directs administration to transfer the net surplus from operations of $653,947 to the tax stabilization reserve. So the surplus is calculated based on the 2024 tax-supported actual operation results compared to the approved 2024 budget. So the net budget expenditures for 2024 is $37,801,839, and the actual expenditures, the 2024 actual expenditures is $37,147,892, leaving a net surplus of $653,947. So what created the surplus? This slide shows the variance by division. In council, there's a positive surplus of $105,322. Office of the CAO, positive of $80,384. Community safety and well-being showed a small deficit of $40,880. Corporate services showed a positive variance of $751,384. Development infrastructure services showed a deficit of $393,942, and community partners showed a positive variance of $143,678. I'd like to focus mainly on the two key variance divisions, which is corporate services and development and infrastructure services. So for corporate services, the key revenue drivers were the franchise fees, where we had budgeted $4.9 million, and the actual was $5.1 million. That's a variance of $223,000. The reason why the franchise fees were higher than budget was it's geared towards consumption as well as users, and both of those increased in 2024. The return on investments, this particularly is driven by our investments that the town has. We had budgeted $2.5 million, and the actual return on investment was $6.8 million. That's a positive variance of $4.3 million, and the reason why our investment earned a higher return was we had a higher interest rate that we received on those investments, plus the amount that was held in long-term investments increased from 85 million to 105 million dollars. Penalties and fines, we had budgeted 540,000. Actual was 680,000. That's a positive variance of 140,000 dollars. And the reason why that increased is there were a number of accounts that were past due or in arrears. And provincial grants, we had budgeted $284,311, and the actual was $451,288. That is a variance of $166,000. And that particular grant is the LGFF grant, which is Local Government Fiscal Framework. The amount that was used in the 2024 budget was based on 2023, which is lower, and that's why there was a positive variance. In terms of the expense, the audit fee that was budgeted in 2024 was $57,600. The actual was $212,906, which had a negative variance of $155. And the reason why that was higher is we had contracted a metrics group that provided consulting services when we dived deeper into the TCA offset levies and the asset retirement obligation. Legal costs were higher than anticipated, but by $163,000. And lastly, the interest allocations. This is the allocation that we use a portion of our investment income to allocate to offset levies as well as reserved. While zero was budgeted, the actual that was allocated to those two areas was $2.6 million, leaving, so when you net the two, it left a positive variance of $751,384. In terms of the development and infrastructure services, the key variance revenue there was $100,000 budgeted for a grant from FCM for asset management. That grant was not available in 2024. Business licenses, we had budgeted $350,000. Actual was $190,000, leaving a negative variance of $184. And the reason for that is there's an accounting change in accordance with the new public sector accounting standard 3400. And so a portion of those revenues have to be recognized in 2024, while the residual is sitting in deferred revenue and recognized in 2025. In terms of the key expense variances, there's two positive. The contract for preventive maintenance for our facilities and maintenance, we had a positive variance of $133,000 because there was less repairs and maintenance required for our facilities. And the debenture interest that pertained to the siphon, that was budgeted in the roads department, but that pertains to wastewater, and that has been moved to the wastewater part and became part of the utilities. So the net of all those changes gave the negative balance of $393,000. So when I had presented to council the third quarter financial report, we showed a forecast of $1.2 million in surplus, but the actual is $653,947. The main driver is another a regulation from PSAB. It's PSAS 3450, which is financial instruments, and this particular regulation requires measurement of financial instruments, which is our long-term investments, to be recorded at fair market value, and any gains or losses that is derived from that measurement is reported in our statement of operations. And there's no budget forecast for this number because it's basically a moving target. Some years it could be a gain, some it could be a loss, and we don't get that information until the end of the year from our investment portfolio manager, which is CIBC Wood Gundy. So this slide here, I just wanted to show council the history of our rate stabilization reserve. So the blue bar shows the year-end balance. The highest balance was in 2023 of $1,165,000. and that was after the surplus transfer of $754,000 for 2023. The red bar represents the transfer out as for budget for tax rate mitigation. For 2023 and 2024, the amounts were $500,000 and $352,000 respectively. The green bar shows the amounts transferred into this reserve to increase the balance. The only significant transfer was, as I mentioned earlier, was in 2023 from the surplus of that year. So the balance at December 31st, 2024 is $814,000, or 1.34% of the current budgeted total operating expenditures. This is below the minimum balance of 5% as prescribed by the Operating Reserves Policy 1705-01. So the recommendation tonight is that Council directs administration to transfer the net surplus from operations of $653,947 to the Tax Stabilization Reserve. And this recommendation will ensure the balance is built up as per the Operating Reserve Policy and also provide funding for future tax rate mitigation during periods of economic volatility. That concludes my presentation for tonight.
Thank you. Very in-depth. Appreciate that. Councillor McFadden, your light is on first.
It is. Yes, I'd like to move the recommended action that we direct admin to transfer the net surplus from operations of $653,947 to the Tax Stabilization Reserve. I think I just have 3 questions, and I think you spoke to this one though. The goal is that the tax stabilization is to hold up to 5%, right?
That is, the chair to Councillor McFadden, 5% is the minimum balance.
And so then this transfer will bring it to what?
Good question.
1.2-ish.
That's what it, hang on.
In the report, it states that the $650,000 represents 1.7%, and I believe you said that the current balance was 800,000, so I think we will be just over 3%.
3%. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so the goal is 5. We're just over halfway there. Okay, no, that's, I wanted to understand that. There's a minor question just on the background piece. You'd identified community safety and well-being. There's a net variance of negative 40,000. The explanation of variance, I think that's just a typo. It's supposed to what, say overall increase in operating revenues?
It's an overall decrease of $40,880.
If I may, I think Councillor McFadden that you're correct, that where it says decrease there, that it should say increase.
Right, yeah, it's just a typo.
Yeah.
Because I think it matched out everywhere else. And then, thank you very much for the in-depth reporting and all the rest. The only what I really did appreciate was the explanation for the variances. And I think, though, there's a gap on the legal cost explanation. And I just wanted to know if you could give us a verbal report on that.
If I may refer to my colleague.
Through the chair to Councillor McFadden, are you specifically looking for what drove the variance? Is that your question?
Yeah, I think so, because in every other example of variance, there was some sort of a highlight about what that was. This is the only section that is blank.
So it's difficult to quantify, but I can say this year's, as you've heard me in previous years, the legal fees budgets are one of those ones where it really is just a best guess estimation based on our experience. As you may recall, we've had some significant litigation and legal matters going on, not the least of which was related to the siphon incident. And there has been extensive expenses incurred as a result of working through that process with our partners. And so that was one of the drivers of the overage in the legal budget.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that was my 3 questions, but I certainly support the transfer. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Verdejo.
Thank you. I also support the transfer, but thank you, Councillor McFadden, for bringing up legal costs. I guess just a question about the siphon incident, because wouldn't that be effect of the 2025 budget, not of 2024?
If I could, through the chair to Councillor Federico, the legal costs are reflective when they are incurred.
Okay.
So they have been being incurred since the incident occurred and continue.
Okay, that was one of my questions, so thank you. The other one was about the audit fee being higher due to TCA, offsite levy, and the ARO. I don't even know what some of those acronyms actually mean. Could you kind of explain why the audit fee was higher this year, and especially just because I picked up on the offsite levy portion of it? Can you kind of explain why that would be higher?
The chair to Councillor Federico. So the audit fee it's for the audit of the 2022 restatement and the 2023, and those services was incurred in 2024. If you recall, we received a qualified opinion, and our auditors raised those few areas that required further analysis. So we had hired our auditors, by extension, their consultants, to help us with that work to ensure that going forward we had the proper processes in place for those areas.
Gotcha, so it's going back to correct the 2022, 2023?
Correct.
Okay, and then one last question for me was just in budgeted revenue under community partners. It says $348,913.67. I'm not sure what the 67 cents might pertain to, but every other category, it just like ends in like zeros except for this one. I was just curious as to why that might have a cent value to community partners under budgeted revenue.
The chair to Councillor Federico. I'm looking at the community safety well-being.
No, community partners.
Oh, sorry.
That might have been my mistake too.
My apologies. And which line in particular from the community partners?
So community partners budgeted revenue, it's $348,913.67.
It's just, to Councillor Federico, it's just a rounding error.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Wilson?
So light kicks in. I have a quick question about the franchise fees that you mentioned, which were, I think, made up at least a large percentage of the surplus there. I've just never heard that subject talked about here, and just curious, if I'm not putting you on the spot, Mr. Aleem, what is our current franchise fee here in Cochrane? It's usually based on a percentage. When I'm Googling that different communities have different, what they call local access fees or franchise fees. Where do we sit in Cochrane? How do we determine that? What's our philosophy? And any idea where we sit in like communities around us on that subject?
The chair to Councillor Wilson, that's a great question. I can see for the gas from ATCO, we are sitting at 20%. The ceiling is 35%. I apologize, I don't have any comparison. In terms of electricity, that is through Fortis, and maybe my colleague can give me a hand. Do you know what that percentage is?
So through the chair to Councillor Wilson, the Fortis rate currently is 17%, but council can expect at least the ATCO rates to come forward this year. That agreement is expiring. I actually met with members of ATCO on Friday, and I'm going through the process, and the consideration of whether or not council wishes to increase that franchise fee will be coming forward to council. There are changes to the comparators. Right now, there are a majority of our comparators that we look at that are sitting at the maximum, which is 35%, but certainly that's something that we'll bring forward in more detail when that comes to council in the future.
Excellent, thank you. I have a list in front of me that I'm just looking down of different, at least cities in Alberta and kind of what percentages they're at. It does state what I suspected, at least on here, that when you charge these, that usually the utility provider just turns around and increases the cost to the consumer by that percentage. So you're really it's a different form of taxation to the same public that you're already taxing. I just wondering if we had a philosophy on that. How did we get to 20%? I know I'm a bit out on a limb here on a subject that isn't quite what we're presenting, but.
Yeah, so the franchise fees absolutely end up flowing through to the end user. You'll see those statements on your every invoice that you get as a resident. They show all of their administrative fees. With respect to your other question, I think that's something that we can bring forward and make sure that council has that full information in front of them when we discuss it further.
Okay, thank you. How often do the negotiations or the contracts come up? I don't remember hearing about this during my time here.
So the fees are adjustable or you can evaluate those annually. So council may recall, we did bring them forward, I believe last year, if I recall correctly. It is something that council can consider on an annual basis on whether or not they want to change their fee. The agreement, I believe it is the last one was a 10-year term. It went from 2015 until this year.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to hold up the table with that conversation. That'll be interesting when it comes again.
Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the transfer? Approved.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Mr. Alim. 5D, now this is where we're going to add the 2 items, correct? Yeah. So we'll talk about, well, not add 2, we're going to talk about the CSHO board member appointment and the Rocky Foundation board representative amendment.
Perfect.
Mr. Knox, take it away.
All right, thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So if you remember, I was back here on February 2024, did a presentation about the request from CSHO, the Cochrane Society of Housing Options, to appoint a member from council to sit on CSHO. And part of that, the original proposal, they had identified a second alternative. I can't remember, one of the council members had asked, should we just be putting both of them as full-term members? And we actually had to go back, ask CSHO, and they have identified and requested that the second alternative be appointed as an additional non-voting board member. So I'm just returning here to all of you this evening to bring that request from CSHO forward. So there is the recommended action, and as I've learned from last council, I'm not going to read that out loud.
Thank you for the evolution in your presentation. Councillor Reid.
Yeah, I'll make the motion just so that I don't put my colleagues in an awkward position, but the council appoint a second member of council to sit on the Cochrane Society of Housing Options Board effective April 14th, 2025 to the term of October 20th, 2025.
If I may make a suggestion that you identify the council
Yes.
member in the motion?
I think we had identified Councillor Flowers as the alternate.
Happy to identify Councillor Flowers as the
Okay.
term.
Thank you.
Councillor Flowers?
Thank you, Councillor Reid. I am excited to be part of it. Councillor Federico and I did attend their meetings. There's a lot going on. Their annual general meetings coming up, so I would be proud to be part of the solutions.
Okay, not seeing any discussion. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Let's move on to the Rocky Foundation.
Perfect. So thank you, everyone, for making time for this emergent issue. The Rocky Foundation Board of Directors are formally requesting a letter of support from the Municipality of Cochrane to amend the ministerial order governing Rocky View Foundation's board composition. Specifically, they're looking to allocate a second seat to the city of Airdrie to reflect its significant growth and contribution to the foundation's annual requisition. Just some context here. In 1994, the Rocky View Foundation was formally incorporated under the Alberta Housing Act and has maintained the same board composition since it was originally established. Since that incorporation, Airdrie's had substantial growth, with their population growing from 14,500 in 1994 to over 85,000 and continuing to grow. The city currently contributes approximately 32% of the board's annual requisition, which is really demonstrating its significant role in supporting the foundation's operations. So our, the Rocky View Foundation Board believes that increasing Airdrie's representation from 1 to 2 seats is really fair and necessary to ensure that balanced governance across the way. So the recommended action there, just looking to see if this is something that our municipality would support.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Knox. Councillor Flowers, you're our representative on the,
Yes, I'd like to make the motion that council direct administration to provide a letter of support for Rocky View Foundation's request to amend the ministerial order governing its board composition to allocate a second seat to the city of Airdrie. And everyone on our board did agree to that, but we needed an official from each community. It is the first change in a long time, but Airdrie is bursting at the seams and they have big needs, the same as we do, so I would like to see it happen there. The rush is that they want to get it in place by fall, and these things take time, so thank you.
you're not seeing any other commentary. I do have, I support the initiative, and I think this is long overdue. For all the reasons provided in the report, I would be interested in what Cochrane's contribution is, and this is not a question for today. I just, it has me thinking about maybe we should be asking something similar, and obviously we wouldn't make this year's rotation, but maybe we put this on a future council agenda to maybe request the same thing for Cochrane to have additional representation. I mean, the growth in Cochrane has been significant since that 1964 also, but I'm just interested in the percentage of the assessment. So I think that would maybe give us a good snapshot. Thank you. Not seeing any other questions, I'll call it. All those in favor? Carried.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Knox. We've got one more item, 5E, Cochrane Municipal Policing Committee appointments. Ms. Robertson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. In December of 2022, the province passed Bill 6, the Police Amendment Act, requiring Cochrane to establish a municipal policing committee. The first step in this process was to enact a bylaw enabling its inception, which council did on February 10th of 2025. The next step was to notify the public about the public at large positions available on this committee. Advertisements took place over 2 weeks in the Cochrane Eagle, on the town website, and on social media, with a March 17th, 2025 closing date for applications. A total of 38 applications were received by the deadline. Truly a large number of applicants that reflect the willingness of Cochrane residents to become involved in their community. We would like to thank all of those that submitted their applications for consideration in this process. All applications were reviewed by a selection panel, a short list was developed, and those applicants took part in an interview. The panel's recommendations have been brought forward for council's consideration in making the formal appointments. Copies of all of the applications received were provided in packages to council privately through their portal to make sure we were following the FOIP Act. A ballot with the selection panel's recommendations will be provided for council members to vote on the public at large appointments to the committee. Prior to voting, council may wish to consider going into closed session to review the applicant's qualifications and selection panel recommendations. I'm happy to take any questions prior to that, should council want to ask anything of this process.
Council, any questions before we move into our closed session? Councillor Flowers?
Just a question about the number. Was there 38 applicants?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Flowers.
Is that the most we've ever gotten for one committee?
I believe so. The second was the Natural Environment Task Force that also had a significant number of applications.
Great to see so many keen people interested. It's going to make it hard, though.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll look for a motion to enter closed session. Thank you. Councillor Flowers, I thought maybe with your light on.
I move we go into closed session.
All those in favor? Okay, we'll
Closed session.
We are live. We need a motion to come back into open session. Councillor Flowers, all in favor? Carried. Okay, now please indicate your choices. Okay. Thank you. Okay, council, we need a motion to appoint the following individuals: Sid Roy, Thomas Chapman, Zachary Christia, Marlise Jackson, Gary Cardy, and Cheryl Whittle. Is someone prepared to make a motion?
If I might add, effective term is April 14th, 2025 to April 14th, 2027. The date on the report is inaccurate.
Okay.
To 2028, I'm sorry.
2028.
Correct.
Got it. Councillor Reid, please.
Happy to make that motion that those, is it 6 individuals?
Yes.
Be appointed to the police, what is the proper term?
Cochrane Municipal Policing Committee.
Cochrane Municipal Policing Committee, the CMPC Committee.
Another acronym.
Another acronym,
Effective April 14th to expire December 31st, 2028.
please.
Okay.
And just, as the colleagues identified, I think it's great that the community is stepping forward and volunteering for these types of opportunities, so that's great. I'm glad we don't have to pay them.
Yeah, okay. And so we'll do that motion. I think Councillor Federico, you're gonna ask about the council member?
No, yes, that's exactly what I was gonna ask. We haven't decided that, right?
No, not yet. Okay, we'll deal with that with a separate motion. All those in favor? Carried. Ms. Robertson, do you want to talk about the council rep?
Yes, we do require one member of council to be appointed from April 14th to October 20th, 2025. That would be an appointment that would be done annually, as the other committees of council are done annually, so this would go to the end of this council's term.
Okay. Is there a member of council willing to put their name forward to serve on this committee at this time? Councillor Reid?
I'd be willing to do that if that's supported by colleagues or if anybody else is interested.
Okay. Councillor McFadden?
I'm more than glad to second that, and thank you for volunteering. We don't second things, but I want to second that.
You're gonna take that as a motion, Councillor McFadden? Yes. Okay. So all those in favor of appointing Councillor Reid as the member of council? Carried. Thank you, Councillor Reid.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robertson. Now moving into the notices of motion section. Councillor McFadden, you have a couple, and tonight, just as a reminder, we're reading them into the record and to be voted on in the future council meeting.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the reminder as well, because I have to admit I've lost track of our process on this one. So the first one, the recommended action on this one is that we would direct administration to prepare a report on the implications of removing the requirements for pet licensing for dogs and cats in Cochrane. So this just builds on the example of the town of Okotoks, and we're requesting that administration will review the potential to eliminate pet licensing requirements in the town of Cochrane. The proposed approach would require dogs and cats to wear visible identification instead. And the key benefits of removing the pet licensing includes reduced administration costs and time on our side, as well as cost savings for residents. This came to my attention in just speaking to some contacts in Okotoks. They actually removed this in their last budget, and they just require that you have your pet identified. And there's various ways to do that folks do: private tags, tattoos, chips, etc. So, and this has been one for a while that I'm not quite sure has a value-added service to our residents any longer.
Okay, Councillor Reid, you have a question? We're not debating tonight.
No, I know, just a question. Is the revenue derived from pet licensing used to construct and maintain dog parks?
Through the chair to Councillor Reid, we don't directly identify where that revenue goes, but it is to support the program. I think the most recent analysis suggested that it covers the administration of the licensing program, but there's not a lot of revenue generated beyond that.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that that we should actually, in a user pay kind of context, the philosophy the council's gone with, that if we were to wipe out this fee, recognizing again that it may not necessarily cover even the administrative costs, maybe the fee needs to be higher as opposed to being eliminated, so that we can have more dog parks and have the funds to be able to maintain them. That is, the users of dog parks pay for the services that we're rendering. So I'm just putting it out there in terms of discussion, because I think that, you know, we've had a kind of philosophy discussion about user pay, and if there are users using dog parks, then I think and there was a cost to the town in terms of their maintenance and inevitably the construction, when we do more of them, then I think the dog owners, and I'm one of them, should pay that fee.
Councillor Reid, I think we're getting into debate.
Sorry.
I think if I'm understanding your question or your motion tonight, Councillor McFadden, that would be part of what administration would bring back as current fees, revenues, and we can have that conversation.
It's exactly the point, is to allow council to kind of have an informed discussion around this. It's been my understanding for a number of years that, I think our fees that we charge are in line with what other municipalities charge. That essentially the revenue is covering off the cost to administer, so it's not leaving us any space to actually invest in anything related to our pets. So it kind of, and it's not actually providing a value to anybody either. Because when I lose my pets, I go out to Facebook. The last thing I do is call the town of Cochrane, because Bylaw then charges me a couple $100 if I catch it. So I'm not sure it's actually anyway, it's coming from that. It's not currently adding a value. So if we were going to have a discussion around how the service is currently operating, and come from kind of an informed decision point on that, whether it's providing value or not.
Councillor Reid.
Just again, in the world of good, better, best, and a little bit of time that we have left together as a council, I'm just wondering, is this a taxing, is something going to be pushed out of the way to be able to do this?
Councillor Reid, that's what we'll talk about that next when this comes up.
Okay.
So this is really just putting it into the public realm.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
In 2 weeks, we're going to have that very opportunity yeah. Well, that's up to you. Okay, we're good on that one. Thank you, Councillor McFadden. Let's move to your next, to 6B. Civic leadership.
Thank you very much. This is kind of a plethora of items. As I think a lot of folks know, community engagement and improving our civics is near and dear to my heart. So I'll just read this through, and like I said, look forward to discussing this at our next council meeting. But the recommended action itself is that council direct admin to bring back a report outlining the feasibility of delivering a suite of municipal civic leadership and engagement opportunities, including the creation of a leadership Cochrane program, a terms of reference for the existing community association Town of Cochrane engagement sessions, the creation of a mayor's youth council, adding youth members to council committees, and the creation of a citizen panel. So as a summary of those, I firmly believe that civic engagement is essential for ensuring that our residents have a voice in local decisions and that our policies reflect the needs of the community. When residents are engaged, council can make more informed, effective decisions. Increased civic participation builds trust between the community and the government, promotes transparency and accountability. By involving Cochrane residents, we encourage support for new ideas, foster problem solving, improve services, and ensure that the community's priorities are at the forefront of our decision making. So the first of these, and I've shared this with you over the years, is Leadership Cochrane. I discovered this. It's a community-driven program, which is modeled on a successful leadership initiative called Leadership Germantown, which I discovered during my MBA program, where we were studying organizational excellence. So there's the example here in the information package as well. But this program itself here in Cochrane would be aimed at developing leadership skills and deepening our civic engagement. The goal of this would be that participants would gain valuable knowledge and experience through monthly sessions, group projects, and volunteer opportunities, preparing them for future leadership roles in Cochrane. The program would strengthen our civic engagement, leadership development, and community involvement to empower future leaders and contribute to the growth of our town. The next up is the Community Association Town of Cochrane Engagement Sessions Terms of Reference. So these community association meetings have been happening, I think, since '07. They've changed slightly. Initially, they were set up. Councillor Churchill and myself advocated for these in my first term, and it was a meeting between different reps from the community associations and members of council to sit with our senior admin team and discuss items of interest with the community associations twice a year. And I found it a very valuable process. And so we've moved away from council being able to engage with those, which I feel is a real lack. So what I'm suggesting here is that we formalize the terms of reference. I don't think they ever were. So to formalize the terms of reference for that ongoing engagement with community association and ensuring both council and administration participate, and to strengthen the dialogue between town and its residents. The third is a creation of a mayor's youth council, which the goal here is to deliberately involve youth in Cochrane civic discussions, fostering a sense of responsibility and leadership among young people in the community. I know on the FCSS committee that I sit on, we have 2 youth reps now, and I'm heartened to see that we had a youth member, and I believe selected onto the policing committee. So I think it's really important for us to be deliberate engaging our youth. And our seniors and everyone in between, but I think that deliberate youth engagement could really pay dividends for us. And the next one is to review of youth engagement opportunities in council committees and to provide opportunities for youth to actively contribute to advisory and decision-making processes within the town of Cochrane. And the last one is the creation of a citizen panel, which would establish a diverse group of community members to offer feedback, insights, and recommendations to council on municipal policies, projects, and services, ensuring that decisions reflect a broad range of perspectives. This suite of initiatives would foster greater civic participation, strengthen community ties, and create leadership opportunities for all Cochrane residents. So my goal with this one will be to have administration come back to a report on the feasibility of delivering some or all of those, and for council to maybe identify which might be their priorities in this suite of options. I think all of them could certainly be done, and anything I think we can do to lean in and help engage with our residents in a meaningful way will help us have more effective governance. So that is the second one I'll be bringing forward.
Okay, very in-depth.
No debates. Yeah. I wrote that a long time.
All right, thank you. Look forward to that 2 weeks' time. Okay, moving on to Mayor's report. Got a few things here. State of Cochrane obviously happened, feels like a long time ago. I think it was 2 weeks-ish. Good turnout. Shared the town's message around the report to the community. I don't know if council, you probably have, yeah, they're on your front of you. I think everyone's, I've seen at least one report to the community down there, very well put together document, sharing the things that we undertook over the last, in 2024. Had the opportunity to attend the Spray Lakes Rec Board meeting. The AGM is coming up on April 14th. There is some questions around participation on the board. What does recruitment of new board members look like in the face of the RFP discussion, et cetera. So currently dealing with some questions to the board about that, or not April 14th. I'll have to get back to you on the date. I think it might be the 28th because today's the 14th. I should have written that down. I'll get back to you on that. I attended the Glenbow Community Association AGM, fielded some feedback, I'll call it, on the Pathway project and the Glen Patrick Road capital project. Residents had, it was mixed reviews, some, you know, as you've probably heard yourselves in inboxes, but the big takeaway was the upcoming engagement session, I think, is phase 2 is coming up on Wednesday, and a lot of residents had some questions about that, and they were also sharing feedback that they appreciated the first one and that administration was very open, engaging, and they understand the impacts, but they also understand that no one wants sewer backing up in their basements either. So I think a mixed review, but mostly hesitancy around length of time, staging, phasing, and specifics that administration are going to address on Wednesday. Smart Start, there was a second wave now of the cohort launch through economic development, and another 8 fledgling businesses paired with a cohort, so an existing business in our community that are going to mentor them through the program. Everyone involved had huge kudos to economic development and everyone involved there about how meaningful that was, and some of the mentors that were from the previous year have come back and are serving a second. So I think we're seeing some really good success there. So hats off to that whole program. I also attended the Cochrane Area Health Foundation group meeting. So our Cochrane Foundation brought together the health foundations from the region, and they talked about how to share fundraising goals, et cetera, and best practices and peer support. So positive, I guess, take away from that. That dovetailed into, and I'm just going to skip ahead in my report here, to I had a meeting with representatives from AHS around urgent care. Obviously not our jurisdiction, something we care about deeply. So I met with Barb Shelley and Amy Good from AHS to talk about the need for extended hours, what are the metrics around asking for or lobbying for extended hours, do we need it? We're hearing from the community that we do. So they provided a ton of information, and I was like, this is too much for me to take in. Could they come to a council meeting? And the answer is yes. So it may have already gone out, the invitation for them to come and present as a delegation, where we as a group can ask them all of those things. Numbers of patients in, what are they doing with the volumes they're seeing, and et cetera, et cetera. So I found it to be very meaningful. So look for that on an agenda soon. I did talk about the Calgary Airport Banff Rail, I think a few meetings ago. I did have a meeting with them. The proponents, they are gearing up now around the City of Calgary's LRT connection from downtown to the airport. That's very good news for the Lyricon plenary group. They're starting to move forward with urging the province to move them to that next phase of design. So they continue to inch forward on that proposal, but it's significantly tied to that airport downtown connection. So that's kind of what's holding that up. Councillor Flowers and I were at the Cochrane Toyota 15th anniversary. Pretty interesting and awesome celebration of a business that's very, I would say, a very good corporate citizen in Cochrane and supporting a plethora of things. But I think celebrating the success of I think they were #1 in 240 Toyota dealerships across all of Canada. And they're right here in Cochrane. So hats off to them. I toured Big Hill Haven with Mayor Brown from Airdrie. Airdrie is struggling with some decision-making around Big Hill Haven type services, and they are looking to emulate what Cochrane's doing. And so we were looking at an initiative where we could team up with the city of Airdrie to obviously, again, this is an arm's length, but how can Airdrie and Cochrane support the mechanism in domestic violence, and how we can partner in making this program that's beneficial across the province, and also getting the eyes of the minister. I can't remember his name at this point. I'm working on very limited sleep and oxygen today, I think, from the amount of meetings I've been in. I'm going to skip down to the staff appreciation dinner on Saturday. Very well done, I thought, recognizing employees, the HR program that's in place, not only the spotlight, but the unveiling of the Revolution program. I thought very appropriate and a meaningful evening to highlight stars in the organization, some of which there was one 35-year employee recognized that evening. So, and all the way through and now I think the new milestone is 8 years. So I thank you for the committee and to ELT for your words and everything supporting the staff. Had a good meeting today with Minister McIver around legislations, and just a reminder that we have the Rec Master Plan workshop. I believe that's tomorrow. Not everybody had put it in their calendar. Some are away, I understand, but just a reminder that the consultant in charge of that is reconnecting with council tomorrow afternoon. I think it's in your calendars at the station, 3 to 5. Thank you, Councillor Flowers. And that's my report for today. Is there any council reports? Councillor Flowers.
I just wanted to add, I went to the Frank Wills Memorial Society 25th anniversary on Saturday. It's hard to believe that was built 25 years ago. They're changing the name to the Wills Memorial Society, and it'll reflect Maureen's help and all the work she did on that as well. So it was nice to get together and see people that have been involved. It's really filled a need in our community for weddings and showers and funerals and history and so on and on and on. So they are going to also renovate their kitchen this summer, so it'll be a much bigger commercial kitchen, and I think that'll help them rent it out as well. So it was a good event.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, I don't see any other lights. Let's move to, we have 3 closed session items. We need a motion to move into closed session. Councillor Wilson, thank you. All those in favor? Carried. Just let the streaming